Hey up, it's Klye here. Pequod, the unsung hero of MGSV. He's the personal pilot for Venom Snake, and he comes with us on every mission. He even helps us in our missions by providing air support and helping us to save people. He's one of the most crucial members of Diamond Dogs. Without Pequod, all of our missions would be impossible. Which makes me wonder, is V even needed? Surely, Pequod could do all of these missions by himself, while V hangs out at Mother Base and does whatever he does back there. So, can Pequod beat Metal Gear Solid V? Just for fun, I'm going to be playing on the PC version, but don't worry, I haven't gone crazy with the mods or anything. So, Pequod, not technically the name of the pilot, but the name of the helichopper itself, which means that, actually, any pilot could be Pequod, it's just a call sign. Especially true because Pequod can get shot down inside a mission, and when he does, he immediately gets replaced. Just like that, they send you a new pilot and a new chopper who's called Pequod, and they're exactly the same as the old one. You can't really go inside Mother Base that much, so what's really going on behind these closed doors? I think there's a perpetual Pequod program going on, otherwise known as the P3 plan. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of love for Pequod it seems, because I downloaded loads of nude mods to enhance all the Diamond Dongs, but I couldn't find a single mod that lets us play as Pequod or fly the chopper. The only mods for Pequod that are on Nexus mods are ones that change who he is or stop him from talking. The disrespect for Pequod is insane, and hopefully that changes. Thankfully, our hero Your 401k Plan Returns put up a pilot model that's close enough. So we're going to have to be Pequod's co-pilot, or Phantom Pequod. Nobody ever sits in the co-pilot seat, and that's the seat with all the radio gear on it, so we can just imagine that that's our seat and that's the radio that we're using to call Pequod. There's going to have to be a degree of roleplay and imagination, which I'm not adverse to. Even though we are Phantom Pequod, the real Pequod is going to get the spotlight. Let's talk about how this is going to work. Obviously, since the game is kind of designed around you going into missions and doing stuff, we are going to have to do a few things ourselves. But ideally, we want to try and keep that to as minimum as possible. We're purely using Phantom Pequod to progress through the story and trigger mission events. So things like bringing prisoners back to the chopper and collecting stuff, things like that. Everything else has to be done with the chopper. Phantom Pequod also has to remain a complete ghost. Nobody can know he ever existed. So even though we're using a massive helicopter to beat the missions, we still have to remain completely stealthy. We also won't be counting any missions that Pequod wouldn't be involved in, so things like the hospital escape and the Diamond Dogs tutorial. Those missions are for V anyway, and it's more about the story or the admin of Diamond Dogs, so Pequod wouldn't really be involved in that. But there's only a couple of those missions, and they go by quick enough because they're basically just playable cutscenes. We get full access to Pequod starting from mission 3, so let's see what he can do. To call in the chopper, we use the iDroid menu, or we can throw a flare. And while it is fun to bonk people on the head and make them toke on the smoke, they're really inefficient, and the iDroid is always on you, and it's faster and free, so we're going to be sticking to the iDroid. From here we have two options, pickup or air support. Pickup means we can select a landing zone for Pequod to fly to, and air support means we can tell Pequod to fly wherever we want. They're very similar options, but air support lets us get Pequod into specific places. Especially useful because one of our biggest enemies for this challenge, the anti-air radars. Those things mean that Pequod can't land in an area until it's destroyed. But calling for him in the air support menu bypasses that completely, and he'll fly in regardless. He just won't land there, which is fine. Whenever Pequod flies in and sees an enemy, he'll immediately go aggressive until there's nobody left. He really doesn't hold back. Pequod is very thorough. Now initially, that seems like it'll be good and it'll make things easy. But at this stage in the game, Pequod isn't very well equipped. He can't really take that many hits. So there's a very good chance he'll get too hot and he'll need to pull out. But once he's cooled down a bit, he can go back in and unload. Once that man is turned into mush, we unlock chopper customization, and this will be insanely useful as we go through the game. This makes Pequod even stronger and it gives him some new tools. But it also increases the cost of Pequod's deployment, so let's hope we don't run out of GMP. For Mission 4, C2W, we need to destroy some radio equipment. Pequod can't land at the mission zone yet because of the anti-air radar, so we can't do the C2W speedrun strat or use the minigun on the dishes just yet. And Pequod himself only attacks living targets. If there's no soul to collect, then Pequod just isn't interested. Maybe we could get super lucky and he'd rocket the radio randomly. That's entirely possible, but let's do something that's a little bit more guaranteed. What we need to do is get Pequod to land nearby, and then Phantom Pequod gets into the chopper, grabs a hold of the minigun, and hopefully we hit the anti-air radar on the way out of the mission. It's a very small target and aiming while flying is very tricky, but if we manage it, we can come back to this mission and select the new LZ. That means that we can fly in and shoot all the dishes in one fell swoop. A classic strat, although that isn't particularly stealthy on Phantom Pequod's end, so alternatively, if we want to be a bit more stealthy, we can get Pequod to clean the area for us, and now he can land at the new LZ. When we hop in, we can man the minigun and shoot all the dishes very quickly. And I do mean quickly, because we have about 5 seconds to do this. But if we manage it, then we did this mission with no witnesses, which is the best kind of stealthy. Just so this video isn't 5 hours long, I'll only be showing the interesting missions. There's some missions where all we have to do is pick up a dude and then bring him to the chopper, so you know how those are being finished. Pequod flies in with the winds of destruction, we walk through the freshly made graveyard, and then we pick up the person and then put them in the chopper. Easy as that. Some missions are just object retrieval, so we can slip our Phantom Pequod in and out quickly for those ones. When it comes to human targets, that's Pequod's forte. There's some missions that require vehicle destruction, but because the vehicles have people inside of them, Pequod is more than happy to do them by himself. Although, when it comes to Quiet, our silent assassin, sadly, we can't fight her. If we call for Pequod to fly in, she's just far too powerful and she'll immediately blast him out of the sky. So it seems like there's no way to beat Quiet in this playthrough just using the heli. But that's alright, because we're on a fresh save file, and being on a new save means you can just walk right past her and escape. Pequod is strictly business. There's no time for love to blossom on his battlefield. We do have a little bit of a problem in Mission 13, Pitch Dark. We can't take out the anti-air radar or blow up the oil tank because the closest LZs are far too far away, and the refinery is in a dip. I mean, maybe it would be possible to land a random stray, but I tried this for quite a while and I couldn't get a shot on the tank or the radar, unfortunately. But as we know, Pequod targets soldiers, so there's a chance he'll attack an enemy when they're near the oil tank. Although most of the time he'll miss. Pequod's his own man, we can't command him to do anything specific, it's purely down to his own whims. But if the stars do align, he'll attack an enemy while strafing past the tank and blow it up for us. So all that Phantom Pequod needs to do is jump through the window and finger the button. Things do get a little bit harder from here though. Pequod's still amazing, don't get me wrong, but it has some limitations. It's mostly just the fact that we're up against stronger enemies with better gear. They're a lot more equipped to deal with a helichopper. We can still beat every mission by letting Pequod loose. We're just going to go through quite a few Pequods to do it. The upgrades definitely help, but they're sucking my GMP dry, and not in a nice way. Another problem is the skulls. Pequod can't fly when the skulls are around because of the mist, foreshadowing, and Phantom Pequod needs to extract the truck that they're guarding. We could just balloon the truck away, but I'm curious as to who recovers the balloons for Diamond Dogs. Pequod has a big rod that he could use to scoop things up with. We never see him use that for any refueling, so he might be able to do that, but I'm not so sure about that, so we're just going to get Phantom Pequod to drive the truck, which ultimately Fultons it off screen, so we can't say for sure that Pequod didn't swoop down and prod the truck. It all happens when the screen fades to black, so we can just make up any old bollocks. Anyway, we've got bigger problems than if Pequod's a Luna. We have to retake the platform in Mission 22. Retake the platform. I don't really think that Pequod would be called to solve this problem, but this mission isn't restricted to V because they do let you play as any member of Diamond Dogs for this, so possibly. We can man the minigun on the way in, but Mosquito is too far back and Pequod flies in too low, so I don't really think we could land a shot. And even worse, once you land, the chopper's disabled. So Phantom Pequod's gonna have to go in and do this one all by himself. But we can take out this guy in a way that might look like an accident and retain our Phantom status. If we hide under the stairs and make a little bit of noise to attract Mosquito, we can hang on the ledge and pull him off, which makes him fall almost to his death, and then to his death. This actually counts as perfect stealth, no kills. So you can't prove that Phantom Pequod did anything. Maybe the guy just tripped. Another problem we have, as usual, are children. Pequod has some reservations about turning kids into mush, even if the kids shoot back, which is why I wish we could control the chopper, because this wouldn't happen with me at the helm. But, you know, I don't just want to go in there with Phantom Pequod and punch a child. Not this time around anyway. I think that would be a little bit too obvious, and we're supposed to be a Phantom. And we are role-playing as a pilot. So I think the only logical and reasonable way to save these kids would be to treat their heads like a helipad.
This is Pequod. Have arrived at LZ.
Goomba stomping doesn't count as anything on the stat screen, so there's no way to prove I just did a swanton bomb on a child. Liquid's even easier to stomp on and knock him on his hind, and he's a big fan of helicopters. Thankfully, there's only a couple of missions with kids in it, so Pequod can go back to doing what he does best, until we return to an old problem: the skulls. Strangely enough though, for this specific version of the skulls, the sniper skulls, Pequod will actually fly through this mist. And another strange thing is that he actually won't attack them, and in turn they don't attack him. It's a really odd interaction. He has absolutely no problems blasting the men, but there seems to be a kind of truce between Pequod and the sniper skulls. This is ripe for some fanfic. I'll be making sure I keep my eye on Rule 34. The mission after this is against the armoured skulls, and these guys aren't as nice. They kill Pequod, and they make Pequod rusty. The mist also means that we can't get another Pequod in here, so the chopper is completely unavailable, which means that Phantom Pequod has to fight the skulls all alone. But before we do that, take a look at this. Behind Pequod there's a weapon. It seems to be a pistol, so that means that Pequod has access to a gun. The real Pequod also has a pistol on his person. Now we can't really know this for sure because they're in holsters, but it looks to me like the AMD 114. But since we can't tell for definite, I wonder if it's actually this gun. But, you know, it's probably not, so we can fight them how Pequod would likely do it, with the Diamond Dog's default pistol, the AMD 114. It's entirely possible to beat the skulls with just the pistol that we presume Pequod would have, although obviously not particularly ideal. Once the mist clears though, we even get a brand new Pequod. Pequod is infinite. Death means nothing to Pequod. It's a good job we have infinite Pequods as well, because OKB-0 is rammed with XOF soldiers. Pequod can take the whole base out by himself of course, but it does take quite a long time. And to do it he does need to go through a few clones, but once we get rid of some of the bigger obstacles, he can easily take out the entire base. And when it comes to Sahelanthropus, if we can get ourselves into the safe-ish spot up on the hill, when we call for the chopper, Pequod will fight Sally all by himself. Like always, it takes a little bit of time, which is surprising considering how effective the minigun is usually. There's also the fact that Sahelanthropus isn't really a big fan of Pequod. Sally shoots up pods that blow Pequod up, and he also has a metallic archaea attack that means that Pequod can't fly. But give it some time, and eventually, Pequod will take out Sahelanthropus all by himself. Interestingly, having Pequod beat Sahelanthropus also means you get a no traces bonus. How strange. In terms of interesting stuff though, that's basically it. Chapter 2 does have a few more missions, but there's a lot of repeats, so we know that Pequod can carry us through those, even in the total stealth ones. As long as Phantom Pequod don't get caught, then Pequod can be as loud as he wants. Pequod is so overpowered that he doesn't even have to follow the rules. Only the rules of nature. And there's even a couple of missions in Chapter 2 he can do all by himself, mostly because it's about destruction, and that's what Pequod does best. Of course, we also have those missions where we need to go and pick some stuff up or bring some people to a chopper, but that's fine. Trouble is, we have mission 35, where we have to Fulton some crates. However, I'm going to pull a classic Klye caveat out my anus, and we're going to use the wormhole Fulton, which means that we get to avoid the ambiguousness of the balloons this time around. Although, using the wormhole kinda makes me want to go and play Metal Gear Survive again. Oddly enough, I kinda like that game. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. I know, right? Blasphemy. Anyway, even in the missions where we have to do something, Pequod does 99% of the work. We barely even have to play. Pequod really is just that powerful. But before we finish, let's pretend that we have access to Quiet's mission, because it's a good one, especially considering this time around, Pequod and Quiet are working together. Using Pequod is one of the most effective ways to beat this mission if you're not geared up, because the mission is to eliminate tanks and armoured vehicles, which, as we know, Pequod is more than capable of, especially with the help of Quiet. They're an absolute unstoppable duo. Quiet and Pequod even have a little bit of a moment together at the end of the mission. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Quiet might be the only character in the whole game to call Pequod by his name. Everyone else just calls it the Chopper and barely even recognises Pequod as a person. However, Quiet acknowledges Pequod's existence. The sniper skulls and Pequod connection theory goes deep. While we ponder that, the remaining missions are ones that only V would be involved in, like the Truth mission where we get to check out Ishmael's arsenal rear, and Shining Lights even in death. For Shining Lights we actually do fly in on Pequod, but it takes place inside of a building, so no chopper. But this mission might secretly be Pequod's biggest moment. The infected start to make a break for the outside, and V chokes. He almost lets the infected escape, which would end up killing the whole world. But guess who has the balls to pull the trigger? That's right, Pequod. He shoots missiles at the door and prevents any infected from escaping. Without Pequod, everyone would have died. So if you think about it, Pequod is the real hero of MGS5. Big Boss may have been the man who sold the world, but Pequod was the man who saved the world. So, can you beat Metal Gear Solid 5 with Pequod? Not really. By the usual standards anyway. There's just too many things that need a person on the ground. Although, if we allow ourselves to believe that Pequod is the chopper, the pilot and co-pilot who does all the groundwork and obviously mans the minigun, then yeah, I suppose Pequod as a full package could easily do all the missions that Diamond Dogs was hired to do. But if we're strictly talking about all of the missions, not just the merc work, and considering Pequod to be as he appears in the game, which is just the chopper and the pilot, then no. Pequod himself can only beat 19 of the 50 missions in the game. So Pequod alone by himself can only beat 38% of the main game, which doesn't sound great, but considering the fact that Pequod isn't even available for 12 of those 50 missions, well, technically 11, but that requires a mission replay, and anyway, the point is, we barely even have to play the game, even in the missions where Pequod can't do everything. You basically just sit around and let Pequod do his thing, and then you walk in and pick something up. It's honestly impressive how capable Pequod is, and you get access to him almost immediately after starting the game. He's there from the very start. So, while Pequod might be amazing, if we want to beat the whole game, he needs a wingman. I'd be his wingman anytime. Hopefully this has shown you how good Pequod is, and fingers crossed we get some more Pequod love in the future. He definitely deserves more love. Ideally, from the sniper skulls. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do leave a like and subscribe if you want to. Let me know any other fun challenge run ideas you've got. And as always, take care.